Hi everybody, welcome to our Facebook video. September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and today to talk about COVID-19 and suicide, I'm joined by Susan Coale, who's the director of the Chesapeake Life Center. Susan, thanks for taking time to come and talk with me today.
Happy to be here.
So before we begin, I want to make sure that viewers are aware if they or someone they know are in suicidal crisis or emotional distress, that they could contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and that number is 1-800-273-8255. Before we talk about how COVID has, impacted suicide, I wanted to talk a little bit about the language that we use when we discuss, and terminology when we discuss suicide, the language we use, and why it matters to use different phrases and words. So if you could talk a little bit about that to begin with.
Sure, I'd be happy to start there. Historically, suicide has carried a lot of stigma. It has been a crime. It has been labeled by the church as a sin, an irredeemable sin. And so the stigma, I think, that surrounds it both makes it difficult for people to access help because they feel, so stigmatized even having them. It also makes it difficult for grievers who have lost a loved one to suicide to seek help and to come to terms with it. So that the term that has historically been used is commit suicide. And, we commit crimes, we commit sins. So that makes the person sound bad.
Right.
So one of the parts of the movement in suicide prevention has been to shift that wording to died by suicide or completed suicide, as in completing an act, because that takes away some of that stigma.
Right.
Now, there is a balance because, and I've certainly experienced this in the counseling room, sometimes that stigma can help people stay alive. That if someone is experiencing suicidal thoughts or urges, the idea that this is such a great sin that they could not be forgiven for it, sometimes that's what they need to help them hold on to that thread of life. So I have to say that as a counselor, there have been times when people have talked about that, and while I don't build on it, I don't take it away either,
Right.
because that helps them stay alive.
Right.
And yet after the death, the shame associated with suicide can really isolate those who are grieving. So like so much in this field, there is a tension that we hold.
Yeah.
I would
go ahead.
I was just thinking that another word that is problematic is that people will talk about a person choosing suicide. And really, there's a lot of questions as to whether or not doing something to end one's life is really a choice. Right. That in that moment, whereas someone who's not suicidal might see a variety of options before them for dealing with the stress or the crisis of a moment, research seems to show that those who are taking this sort of an action are in almost a kind of a trance, and they can only see that one option.
Right.
That it's really not so much about ending one's life as ending this incredible pain.
The pain. Right. And just that sort of, like you said, that tunnel, that sort of not seeing, many other options. But that's a good point. So COVID-19, I mean, the stressors, and we've been going through this for months now. And I can only imagine someone who's already in emotional distress or having mental health issues, the how that compounds those, those issues that are going on with them already. What are some of the major stressors or points that people just dealing with COVID-19 that are happening?
Well, I think so many of them, and in particular, the social isolation that people are experiencing. That if someone is vulnerable already
Right.
to suicidal thoughts, and even people who weren't prior to this, that sense of isolation and the physical distancing and the very necessary restrictions that have been placed upon us have often taken away ways that people cope.
Right.
So here, here's a person that's already in a fragile state of mind who has perhaps intentionally engages socially with other people, maybe works out at a gym or gets massages or acupuncture, sees a therapist, and then those restrictions have taken away some of those things.
Right.
So and it's not been so good at replacing those coping tools. And
Right.
so for so many people, it's like, what do I do if I can't do what I generally do?
Right. It would
And
seem
then,
almost that that tunnel is then even becoming even more narrow, like those. Wow.
yes, taking away those options. So exacerbating pre-existing conditions, creating new conditions, the fear, the anxiety around the disease, that sense of a lack of control,
Right.
fighting an invisible kind of an enemy and not knowing for sure, particularly because at the beginning, there were so many more questions about, well, if I do this, am I at risk? Or if I do
Right.
that, it's
Right.
been really hard.
And on top of just the fear of the illness itself, I'm sure there's the repercussions we've seen just from a an economic standpoint, work related, job loss. That's got to cause stress, I would imagine, as well.
Yes, absolutely. So many people having lost jobs or had their work hours reduced, and such very the vulnerable populations, our service population, uh, both both the direct service folks who have remained the frontline people
Mhm.
and service people such as food service and many lower paying jobs that people have been laid off or lost it. And so that's a huge stressor, both financially, just in terms of self-esteem,
Right.
insurance,
Yeah.
producing food insecurity,
Yeah.
housing insecurity. The list seems to go on and on and
Like
on.
a ripple effect almost. It's like just the way it spreads out is amazing.
Yeah.
So from a prevention standpoint, what are some things that we as friends, family, coworkers could do to try and help somebody that might be in that, you know, frame of mind?
Um, Contact, doing as much as we can to uh, decrease the sense of isolation is so important. Uh, you know, Texting doesn't seem like much, but at least it's a reaching out,
Yeah.
um, giving someone a call, video calls, Skype, FaceTime, all of those are really helpful. And even, and I think I thought about this today when I got the mail. There's a person in my world who periodically, for no reason at all, sends me a card. Thinking of you, hope things are well. Um, and every time, that sense, that immediate sense of connection. I
Right.
have not seen her in many, many months, but I get these periodic cards. And it reminds me that simple little old fashioned things like that,
Yeah.
to be in touch with people is really, really important.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there are things that you can do, particularly for older or more at-risk people, if it's possible for you to help them with day-to-day stuff, whether it's picking up some groceries for them or running to the pharmacy, it's helpful sometimes even just to be seen.
Okay.
Um, I had someone the other day who said to me that she saw a friend that she hadn't seen in a while who really lives nearby. And she was standing on the balcony of her apartment, and the person was standing on the street below, and they had a nice conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
So within physical space, but socially, like
yeah,
within a good amount of distance from each other. That's
yeah,
great.
it felt safe.
Right.
In terms of ourselves, I think there's so much right now that we can't control that it's important to identify what we can. So, setting up for ourselves a daily routine, a regular wake up time, having a regular bedtime, having meals during the day, being as physically active as is reasonable given your health and given your situation, going for walks, being outside, working in your garden if that's something that appeals to you. Uh, that physical activity really uh, has a tremendous impact on our mental health.
I could think that it sort of just breaks everything up. It kind of gives a different, being outside, it's a different environment. It's, you can, connect with the sense, the sounds, the feel of being.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we still need vitamin D.
Right. True.
It's
True.
it's a good
True.
thing. Vitamin D does all kinds of good things
Yeah,
for us.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So I really encourage people to learn a new activity, do something to exercise their brains besides work. And for me personally, anyway, it's nice if it's something that's not on a computer screen.
Right. Yeah. Just, yes, that totally makes sense. So, what about warning signs? Are there things, for prevention, things that we should sort of be aware of, like, just risk factors or warning signs for us to know about?
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks will sometimes actually talk about wanting to kill themselves. Uh,
That's got to
Sometimes
be, if someone says that to somebody, that's got to be really scary for the on the receiving end.
it is. It
Like,
is.
is
Yeah,
there is there a certain way someone should, handle that? I mean, I would think just take a breath and not,
right.
yeah.
Take a breath and don't change the subject.
Okay.
And they use a lot of different words for that. I mean, someone might say, I'm thinking of killing myself. Someone might say, I just wish I could end it all, or I just wish I could run away and never come back. And so it's always a good thing to ask, are you saying that you're thinking of hurting yourself?
Okay.
We're not going to put the idea into someone's head.
Okay.
And the sense of relief that people report that someone has seen and understood and put words to it is really important. And some people don't say it that overtly, but that sense of hopelessness, purposelessness, having no reason to live, feeling like they're a burden to other people, um, or in incredible pain, whether that's psychic pain or physical pain. Both, both can lead to that kind of suicide. Sometimes we see people increasing their use of alcohol or drugs, searching the internet for ways to harm themselves. People tend to isolate and withdraw,
Okay.
either sleep all the time or maybe not sleep at all, or a sense of saying goodbye to people, sort of making, if anything ever happened to me, I'd want you to, sending that email that says, I'm really sorry for all the times that I've hurt you, and I'm not going to be doing that. You know, there's a tone, there's that
Finality,
giving
like
away,
closure, or yeah.
yeah, yeah, giving away prized possessions, or just this sense of immense fatigue. Sometimes it shows up as depression or anxiety, a loss of interest in the world. For others, it's this pervasive sense of shame that I'm an unworthy human being. Um, and as odd as it may sound, sometimes, someone who you have known to sort of be a kind of a apparently low level kind of depression, when there's a sudden relief, this sudden improvement, sometimes that indicates that they've made a decision
Okay.
to end their life. And that's also cause for question.
So,
Oh, you seem so much better. Tell me about that.
right. So
You know,
that
even
that doesn't necessarily mean it's not actually what it is. It could just be a relief internally
right.
for the person because they've made the decision
They've
to.
made the decision, they've got the plan.
Gotcha.
Yes, yes. So if someone acknowledges that that's the way they're feeling, you want to get some professional help. You want to call in an emergency 911
Right.
or the local crisis line, as well as the number that you gave at the beginning.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say, number one, is for us as someone who might be trying to help somebody else, is not to shy away from having the conversation. Like the conversation, even though it feels scary, it's not going to, having the conversation is going to help instead
Absolutely.
of cause any further damage.
Yes.
So that's really good to know. So for resources, I'm sure there are so many resources out there, but are there any in particular that you like to point people to that could be helpful?
Yes, there are a number of them. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention
Okay.
has a wonderful website. It's filled with information for people who are struggling, for people who love someone who is struggling, and for people who have lost someone to suicide. It's a very complete website. The American Association of Suicidology is another one. For those who are grieving, the Alliance of Hope is also a good place to go. What's Your Grief is a website that's run by a couple of local women in Baltimore, professionals who have just a wonderful website to put together so much about various kinds of grief. It's really very helpful.
Okay, great. And I know, as the Chesapeake Life Center offers so much for folks in the community, and especially during the pandemic, can you talk a little bit about that? Like what's happening now with grief support and how, I know you've pivoted and shifted and adjusted
We
and
have, yes.
just been there for everybody in whatever way you can be. Can you share a little bit about what's happening currently?
We're starting a new grief support group this fall, uh,
Okay.
specifically for folks who have experienced a traumatic loss, such as the loss of a loved one to suicide. It will be an in-person group, and it will meet weekly for 10 weeks. So if that's something that feels appropriate or like it might be helpful, I would encourage people to call and talk with us about it. It's going to be a very small group
Okay.
because it will be held in person on our Pasadena campus. And the purpose of this group, looking at the trauma aspect of grief. So it's about creating a safe space, helping folks learn skills to ground themselves, to contain their feelings when they're overwhelming, learning ways to release trauma from the body because our body holds on to this so tightly, and how to safely express the loss circumstances in a way that doesn't trigger that trauma over again. So again, that starts in mid-October.
Okay. And we'll be able to share resources and information on our Facebook page and also is on the website as well. Um, Anything else that you want to share about today? That sounds like a great program. I know virtual programs are going on. I know you guys have done so much going through the COVID period and just trying to really help the community and people who are grieving.
We've done a lot of virtual stuff, and yet what we're hearing, because grief is so isolating, people are kind of tired of being on the screen. And so that's why we're moving to offer just a few very small in-person groups.
And make sure, and you, as you said, like socially distanced and every
Yes,
precaution
distance,
taken,
mask,
masks, everything, taken, I'm sure screening, like everything.
right? Temperature taken when you come in the
Yep.
door.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well, I
become the
mean,
new normal.
right. It has become the new normal. And I totally, there is something as helpful as it is to have a conversation with someone, it does decrease the isolation via screen. It's not the same as feeling that energy in the same room with someone. So I can imagine someone that's grieving, you know, needs that connection
Yeah,
in a real sense, in a physical sense.
very much so.
Yeah.
Very much.
Well, Susan, it's always so good to talk to you and learn from you, and I'm so appreciative of your sharing your information and your guidance. So thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you.
I also want to make sure to thank the John and Cathy Belcher Institute for their generous support of all the community education programs at Hospice of the Chesapeake. Thanks.